नमस्कार, आदाब, हेलो ख़वातीन हज़रात, आप सब लोगों का मेरे चैनल में एक मरतबा फिर तहे दिल से इस्तक़बाल करता हूँ. Hello everyone, I welcome you again to my channel and we will continue with Sahir Ludhianvi. It's been a while. I have been a bit busy with work, a lot of work to do, manuscripts to write, grants to write. Um, but today I had a bit of time, so I thought we would continue. So, as we have spoken about it before, Sahir Ludhianvi was a man of the people. He was a Marxist, he was a socialist who was very concerned with the plight of the common man, with the divide between the rich and the poor, the struggle of the poor, the hegemony of capital that dictates society rather than human values. And that is what we are going to talk about today, his revolutionary spirit. Now, some of you might be scared about the words that I threw out, Marxist and socialist, because these have very, very bad connotations today, and there has been a lot of propaganda over the last 70, 80 years about it, especially post World War II, where there was massive, massive propaganda against any sort of socially forward-looking ideas, governmental systems. And we all know about the number of governments that were toppled by the Western powers, installing their own, sometimes capitalist, sometimes even fascist puppets in those states, Nicaragua, Ecuador, Iran, what have you. Right, but even before getting to that, if we're talking about labor, labor is the cornerstone of Marxist politics. And Marxist historians, Marxist political analysts always view societal dynamics as a class struggle between the haves and the have-nots, whether it is colonialism, whether it is modern neoliberalism, or what have you. And when the fourth estate, as put forward by Edmund Burke, the media, joins up with the ruling class or the elite, then propaganda manifests itself, and it is very, very hard to push it away because the messaging is then controlled by the capitalist interests. Now, if we talk about these two particular nazms of Sahir Ludhianvi that I would be reading today, one is called Awaz-e-Adam, and the other is दीवारों का जंगल जिसका आबादी है नाम. These nazms directly target the heart of the working class struggle. Now, again, because of the baggage that these terms comes with, let me give you a very, very short, very unsophisticated, unfortunately unnuanced perspective on class struggle. And we would start with the rise of industrialization and then colonization. But even before colonialism, the struggle of the working class was already apparent. If you remember, for example, Charles Dickens, when he wrote Oliver Twist, the character of Oliver Twist was an orphan boy exploited in a factory. Back then, when workers did not have many rights, children were employed in factories. They worked hours upon hours. Same for adults. They were paid extremely little, and all those the excess value of this labor extracted from workers, from people, fueled the hoarding of wealth by the elite class. And that's why in those times we hear of the great robber barons of Morgan and Rockefeller and Vanderbilt and all those people who exploited the working class. In fact, we take the 5-day work week, the 8-hour day for granted. We take religious holidays for granted. We take festival holidays for granted. We take medical leave for granted. But none of these rights were won by discourse. They were won with blood. The police, for example, in the United States was formed as a slave catching mechanism. The first police in the United States, and the history of their police force even today is only, their prerogative is only protection of private property. Slaves were private property. And then the police were also charged with busting union activity. When workers banded up and fought for their rights, they were either suppressed brutally or, in many cases, murdered brutally, openly on the streets. Agencies like Pinkerton and the police itself, the British police in India or in any of the colonies, were there to protect the factory interests of the English capitalists and suppress the local population. Every time over in history, when labor class has risen up and demanded their rights, they have been brutally suppressed. And yet, at some time, we always win. What we have forgotten after the entire Red Scare hysteria during the Cold War, and then the onset of neoliberalism with Reagan and Thatcher, with what they call their trickle-down economics, where labor regulations, hard fought and won, labor regulations that were paid for with the blood of our ancestors, were loosened. And now if you look up the graph of productivity versus worker compensation, around 1980 is when productivity keeps on increasing, whereas real wages flatten out. Now, since 1980, there has been an over 300% increase in productivity, whereas if you take at 1980, if you take 100% as the wages, because before 1980 it was lower, if you take that as a reference point, today in 2023, the workers' wages have risen 9%. 9% rise in workers' wages, whereas a concomitant 300+% rise in productivity. This gap, this value that has been extracted from labor, where has it gone? It has been funneled upwards. This trickle down has only gone upwards, and you will see that the gap between the rich and the poor, the housing markets and everything is so horrible today that it is much more difficult for a worker of my generation to buy a house, especially in the West, compared to the generation of my parents. Sahir Ludhianvi was aware deeply of the societal divides. He was deeply aware of the tools the capitalists use to keep the working class divided, whether it is religion, whether it is caste, whether it is language, anything, whether it is societal norms. They use these as wedge issues to divide society such that the working class only fights among themselves, and therefore forgets what the real struggle is. And that is why today you see that the divide between the rich and the poor is worse today than during the Great Depression, the Wall Street crash of 1929. Right? And it's amazing to see that we are that we tolerate this and we allow our governments over and over and over again to neoliberalize our economy at the cost of workers to enrich the capital owning class under the guise of development. And anything that you say against this, you're either called a Marxist, you're either called a socialist, or you're just called an anti-national at some point. So in the same way, so was Sahir, right? And the thing is, all these elite interests, they fix things among themselves. Sahir was pilloried by Hindu orthodoxy, was pilloried by Muslim orthodoxy. He was banned by the British government before independence. And post-independence, he was banned by the Indian government for speaking up against what he saw was going on post-independence. So, and what he mostly spoke about was the struggle of the working class, the struggle of the common man. So let's talk about that. We will talk about Awaz-e-Adam, means the voice of man, right? दबेगी कब तलक आवाज़ आदम, दबेगी कब तलक आवाज़ आदम, हम भी देखेंगे. रुकेंगे कब तलक जज्बात ए बरहम, हम भी देखेंगे. चलो यूं ही सही ये जौर पैहम, हम भी देखेंगे. Till when is the voice of man going to be suppressed? Till when are you going to quench these fires of passion? Just like this. How long are we going to see this ridicule of man? Let's see. चलो यूं ही सही ये जौर पे हम भी देखेंगे. दरे जिंदा से देखें या उरूजदार से देखें, दरे जिंदा से देखें या उरूजदार से देखें. दरे zindan is the wall of the prison. Urujedar is the topmost point of the hangman's noose, of the platform, the hanging platform. तुम्हें रुस्वा सरे बाजार आलम हम भी देखेंगे. जरा दम लो माआल शौकत जम, हम भी देखेंगे. दर जिंदा से देखें या उरूजदार से देखें, तुम्हें रुस्वा सरे बाजार आलम हम भी देखेंगे. तुम्हें रुस्वा सरे बाजार आलम, openly in the marketplace of the world, हम भी देखेंगे. जरा दम लो, take a breath, hang on a second, wait. जरा दम लो माले शौकत जम, हम भी देखेंगे. If there is any justice to be had in the court of King Jamshid. So King Jamshid in Farsi poetry was supposed to be, is a king of legend. He was a Shah of legend. He was supposed to be a just, a fair ruler who cared about his people, his awam. And he's supposed to have this, magic goblet called the Goblet of King Jamshid. So there's a lot of legend. It's a very interesting story that if you guys get time, you should read about it. And so, Zara dam lo maale shaukat jam hum bhi dekhenge. So this show of justice we will see. Ye zoam e quwwat o fawlad o hen dekh lo tum bhi. Ye zoam e quwwat e fawlad o ahan देख लो तुम भी, बाफैज जज्बा ईमान मुहकम हम भी देखेंगे. This strength, this resilience, this steel, देख लो तुम भी, watch it. बाफैज जज्बा ईमान महकम हम भी देखेंगे. बाफैज ए जज्बा, passion, ईमान, ए मुहकम, clarity, this conscience. With all this, we will watch. जबीन काज कुलाही खाक पर हम भी देखेंगे. Jabin face, Kaj Kulahi, like a twisty cap, basically the law enforcers, the ones I told you about, the police, those union busting agencies, the army. Jabin Kaj Kulahi khak par, hum bhi dekhenge. If you will see all of this, look at our Fawlad, look at our Zom-e Quwwat-e Fawlad, look at it. With courtesy, with passion, with conscience, we will watch the caps of those oppressors fallen on the dust. मुकाफत अमल तारीख इंसान की रिवायत है. मुकाफत अमल तारीख इंसान की रिवायत है. तारीख इंसान, द हिस्ट्री ऑफ मैन. मुफाकत अमल हम भी देखेंगे. मुफाकत अमल तारीख इंसान की रिवायत है. The recompense that we get, what are the rewards that we get, तारीख इंसान की रिवायत है. It is the story of the history. It's the story of the history of man. करोगे कब तलक नावाक फराहम, हम भी देखेंगे. कहां तक तुम्हारे जुल्म में दम, हम भी देखेंगे. ये हंगाम विदाए शब है ए जुल्मत के फरजादो. ये हंगाम विदाए शब है ए जुल्मत के फरजादो. This is the evening of noise, of the sound of farewell, because he's been pilloried on the hangman's noose. ये हंगाम ए विदाए शब है ए जुल्मत के फरजादो. Sons of violence, sons of oppression. सहर के दोष पर गुलनार परछम हम भी देखेंगे. ये हंगाम विदाए शब है ए जुल्मत के फरजादों. सहर के दोष पर गुलनार परचम हम भी देखेंगे. सहर के दोष पर, on the lines of sunrise, on dawn, when the dawn breaks, उसके दोष पर गुलनार परचम, the red flag of social movements, हम भी देखेंगे. तुम्हें भी देखना होगा ये आलम, तुम्हें भी देखना होगा ये आलम, हम भी देखेंगे. This is Sahir's revolutionary spirit against oppression, against exploitation. And because of that, he was censored, he was pilloried, he was banned. And therefore he wrote, Lab pe pabandi to hai. There is a ban on my lips. There is a lock on, there's tape on my lips. लब पे पाबंदी तो है, एहसास पर पहरा तो है. लब पे पाबंदी तो है, एहसास पर पहरा तो है. फिर भी अहले दिल को अहवाल बशर कहना तो है. फिर भी अहले दिल को अहवाल बशर कहना तो है. But my heart, the state of my heart, अहवाल बशर, the pain of man, कहना तो है. The state of man, कहना तो है, has to be said. You want to censor me? Government, doesn't matter. I will still speak. खून अदा से ना हो, खून शहीदा से ही हो. खून अदा से ना हो, खून शहीदा से ही हो. कुछ ना कुछ इस दौर में रंगे चमन निखरा तो है. Maybe not by strife, by struggle, but by the blood of martyrs. Even if it is by the blood of martyrs, in this day and age, the color of your gardens blossom by the blood of martyrs. अपनी गैरत बेच डाली, अपना मस्कन छोड़ दें, गैरत, रिस्पेक्ट, डिग्निटी, अपनी गैरत बेच डालें, अपना मसलक छोड़ दें। रहनुमाओं में भी कुछ लोगों का ये मंशा तो है, अपनी गैरत बेच डाली, अपना मसलक छोड़ दें। रहनुमाओं में भी कुछ लोगों का ये मंशा तो है जिन्हें सबसे ज्यादा दावाए हुब्बुल वतन, है जिन्हें सबसे ज्यादा दावा हुब्बुल वतन, हुब्बुल वतन, दावाए हुब्बुल वतन, patriotism. The ones who scream the hardest, who say they have the best claim on patriotism. आज उनकी वजह से हुब्बे वतन रुस्वा क्यों है? Then because of that, हाले वतन, हुब्बे वतन, the people, रुस्वा क्यों है? Where is the self-respect of this वतन, the dignity, everything gone? है जिन्हें सबसे ज्यादा दावाए हुब्बुल वतन, आज उनकी वजह से हुब्बे वतन रुस्वा तो है। बुझ रहे हैं एक एक करके अकीदों के दिए, बुझ रहे हैं एक एक करके अकीदों के दिए। अकीदत इज वर्शिप, दिया, your lamps that you light for worship. बुझ रहे हैं एक एक करके अकीदों के दिए, इस अंधेरे का भी लेकिन सामना करना तो है, राइट? इस अंधेरे का, this darkness, we will have to face this darkness. We have to face this darkness. बुझ रहे हैं एक एक करके अकीदों के दिए, इस अंधेरे का भी लेकिन सामना करना तो है। झूठ क्यों बोले फरोगे मसलाहत के नाम पर, compromise or making things nice. झूठ क्यों बोले फरोगे मसलाहत के नाम पर, जिंदगी प्यारी सही लेकिन हमें मरना तो है। We will all die one day, then why lie just to make things nice and to compromise? That is not what revolution is about. That is not how we won our independence. जब हमने पूर्ण स्वराज का हक मांगा था और कुछ लोगों ने कहा नहीं, डोमिनियन से शुरुआत करते हैं, डोमिनियन की मांग से शुरुआत करते हैं, उन्होंने कहा नहीं, पूर्ण स्वराज चाहिए हमें, क्योंकि जिंदगी प्यारी सही लेकिन हमें मरना तो है। Freedom from the oppressors or freedom from your ruling class has to be won by blood and sacrifice. This is the burning reality that Sahir experienced, and it touched him and he wrote about it. And then the last one for today is this one. It's a very sarcastic take on the ruling class, especially the ruling class of that time. When I read this, you will realize who this is about and why he wrote this at that time. This is called Madam. This Nazm is called Madam. आप बेवजह परेशान सी क्यों है मैडम? लोग कहते हैं तो फिर ठीक ही कहते होंगे, हाँ? आप बेवजह परेशान सी क्यों है मैडम? लोग कहते हैं तो फिर ठीक ही कहते होंगे ना। मेरे अहबाब ने तहजीब ना सीखी होगी, मेरे माहौल में इंसान ना रहते होंगे। अहबाब, दोस्त, रिश्तेदार, फ्रेंड्स, तहजीब, रिस्पेक्ट और the finesse of life, civilized finesse, मेरे माहौल में इंसान ना रहते होंगे। So he says, my friends may not have me and my environment, my friends, my rishtedar, my relations, they may not have learned the finesse of life, the tehzeeb that you are used to. And therefore, it could be that in my environment, not even humans live. Maybe we are not even humans. हाँ? आप बेवजह परेशान सी क्यों है मैडम? लोग कहते हैं तो ठीक ही कहते होंगे। नूरे सरमाया से है रूए तमद्दुन का जिला, हम जहां हैं वहां तहजीब नहीं पल सकती। नूरे सरमाया से है रूए तमद्दुन का जिला। सरमाया, वेल्थ, कैपिटल, द लाइट ऑफ कैपिटल। नूरे सरमाया से है रूए तमद्दुन का जिला। द फेस ऑफ द वर्ल्ड एंड द सोसाइटी इज लिट बाय द लाइट ऑफ कैपिटल। हम जहां हैं वहां तहजीब नहीं पल सकती। मुफलिसी हिस्से लताफत को मिटा देती है। भू अदब भूख के सांचों में नहीं डल सकती। मुफलिसी, पॉवर्टी, हिस्से लताफत is like the finesse of, the things that comes with, a life of leisure. When you have a lot of money, that's when you indulge in, the finer classical things. मुफलिसी हिस्से लताफत को मिटा देती है। when you are power, भूख, when you are in poverty, when your stomach has nothing to eat, then what is the use of all this? भूख अदब के सांचों, अदब भूख के सांचों में नहीं ढल सकती। अदब is again culture, finesse. सांचा is like a mold. अदब भूख के सांचों में नहीं ढल सकती। लोग कहते हैं तो लोगों पे ताज्जुब कैसा। जब लोग कहते हैं तो लोगों पे ताज्जुब कैसा। What are you so surprised about, madam? सच तो कहते हैं कि नादारों से इज्जत कैसी। These little people don't have any तहजीब। नादारों से इज्जत कैसी। What respect will we have? Little people have. लोग कहते हैं मगर आप अभी तक चुप हैं। लोग कहते हैं मगर आप अभी तक चुप हैं। आप भी कहिए ना, आप भी कहिए गरीबों में शराफत कैसी। राइट? लोग कहते हैं मगर आप अभी तक चुप हैं। ऑल योर पीपल आर टॉकिंग, व्हाई आर यू क्वाइट मैडम? आप भी कहिए गरीबों में शराफत कैसी। Why don't you also just say it outright that where is sharafat in the poor? They're all criminals anyway because they are poor, right? नेक मैडम, बहुत जल्द वो दौर आएगा। नेक मैडम, नेक नोबल इनोसेंट, अरे नेक मैडम, बहुत जल्द वो दौर आएगा जब हमें जीस्त के अदवार परखने होंगे। जीस्त, लाइफ और हिस्ट्री, द चैप्टर्स ऑफ हिस्ट्री, जब हमें जीस्त के अदवार परखने होंगे, when we will have to judge the history of man, the story of man from history. अपने जिल्लत की कसम, आपकी अजमत की कसम, अपनी जिल्लत की कसम, from my destituteness, from my shame, from my lack of respect, आपकी अजमत की कसम, your might, your resplendence, your majesty, अपनी जिल्लत की कसम, आपकी अजमत की कसम, हमको ताजीम के मायार परखने होंगे। राइट? This is a very interesting line. अपनी जिल्लत की कसम, on my word of my जिल्लत, आपकी अजमत की कसम, I hold you to your majesty. हमको ताजीम के मायार परखने होंगे। We will have to judge what is respect and what is not. We will have to judge what is the valence, the value of dignity. Why? हमने हर दौर में तजलील सही है। तजलील, when you are stripping someone of their dignity, जलील होना, तजलील is the verb is the noun form of it. हमने हर दौर में तजलील सही है, लेकिन हमने हर दौर के चेहरे को जिया बख्शी है। We are the workers, we are the laborers, we build everything. We are the ones who keep this world running. हमने हर दौर में तजलील सही है. Whether you are a peasant, whether you are a scheduled caste or tribe, whether you are a Shudra or a Dalit, whether you are a construction worker, whether you are a farmer, whether you are a fisherman, every laborer has been stripped of their dignity in every era in the world, in everywhere in the world, every country, every society. But लेकिन हमने हर दौर के चेहरे को जिया बख्शी है. Ziya is splendor, is light, is everything that is beautiful. But we are the ones who lit up the world. हमने हर दौर में मेहनत के सितम झेले हैं. हमने हर दौर के हाथ हमने हर दौर में मेहनत के सितम झेले हैं. In every era, in every epoch, we have been oppressed under the load of our hard work. हमने हर दौर के हाथों हिना बख्शी है. But we were the ones who painted mehendi on the hands of every era. लेकिन इस तल्ख महाबिस से भला क्या हासिल मैडम? लेकिन इस तल्ख महाबिस से क्या भला क्या हासिल? Talq is like something that, it's very provocative. It's something that provokes you, something that makes you uncomfortable. Talq mahabis is these discussions that we want to have. Se bhala kya hasil? What were you going to get from that, madam? लोग कहते हैं तो फिर ठीक ही कहते होंगे. मेरे अहबाब ने तहजीब ना सीखी होगी. मैं जहां हूं वहां इंसान ना रहते होंगे. वजह बेरंगी गुलजार कहूं के ना कहूं. वजह बेरंगी गुलजार कहूं या ना कहूं. कौन है कितना गुनहगार कहूं या ना कहूं. कौन है कितना गुनहगार कहूं या ना कहूं. आप इतनी परेशान सी क्यों है मैडम? So what you see is unfortunately the same rights that we had been fighting for since the dawn of capitalism. The oppression, the exploitation, the division of the elite versus the working class. This is the history of man. Whatever daur, whatever zamana you want to say. And yet, the working class is the one that is vilified, is the one that is told your greed is the cause of all instability and economic problems, not the wealth that is funneled over upwards to the elite, extracted from the surplus value of our labor. And this is more true today in this era of neoliberal reforms, where we have seen over and over again the drop in purchasing power, the drop in stability, the drop in living standards of the majority class. And this is something that we have to reckon with, and it will come to a head someday, because 6 individuals in the world own more wealth than 50% of the world's population. So 60% of the world's population. That's almost 5.5 billion people. 6 people own more wealth, locked up in many places that doesn't enter the economy. This will come to a head one day. This, my friends, is not sustainable. And Sahir, and no one puts it better than Sahir does. And this is just a small taste of his struggle for the common man through his voice, through his kalam. And मैं उम्मीद करता हूं कि इस व्याख्या से आपको प्रोत्साहन मिला कुछ, जाके साहिर के नज़मों को पढ़ के परख के उन्हें उनके अल्फाजों को इस्तेमाल करने के लिए। थैंक यू, शुक्रिया, आदाब, नमस्कार, खुशामदीद।